Righty ho, everyone, and welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us for Trading Buddies this Monday, the 6th of November, which is, of course, a pertinent date here in Australia because it is a major event tomorrow on the sporting calendar, or indeed the social calendar for most people. It is Melbourne Cup Day, which, of course, is a horse race, and I have very little interest in it these days, having backed a lot of slow horses in my past and being completely over the horse racing game, I must say. So let's turn our attention to a different form of attempting to make money, and that is trading. Let me go to the gold chart first up, if I can find one. Gold. Apologies, I'm a little bit disorganized here this morning, or this afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be. There, I'm not sure which screen I'm sharing. Let me just change that to there. If I was sharing gold, then happy days. We should now be doing exactly that again. All right, those of you just entering the room, welcome to you. Thank you for joining us for Trading Buddies. And of course, Ash will be along very, very shortly. My name's Jeff, for those of you here for the first time. And I'm situated in Tasmania, Australia, where it is a beautiful day, lovely breeze blowing to dry up the sweat that I've been toiling out with my garden, getting ready to plant some summer veggies. Righto, that's enough about me. Let's get stuck in, shall we? Gold chart is showing what? Let me get rid of all this junk first up. Oh, actually, I think that may well come into play at some stage. Let's leave it there. Not going to matter today for the breakout, of course. And those of you here for the first time won't know what the heck I'm attempting to do here, but it is that time of the day where we get ready for London session. And what we attempt to do in the first part of London session is find a breakout on gold versus the US dollar on the hourly chart. Now, what we're trying to isolate is the range of Asia session, which looks like it's had a bit of movement today. Starts pretty much on the weekly pivot. That's the start of Asia session. That's the high of Asia session. Up here in the low of Asia session currently is this bar about 4 hours ago. I'll just bring that one down. There we go. So we're going to look for a reason to take this trade. Now, the range is substantial today in that it is about, well, when I say substantial, it's $11. Let's say $11.50, if you like. What we've got to determine is whether there is a reasonable reward available to us, given that we've got an $11.50 risk. Now, we're using the pivots as exit points. And the first pivot that I see, let me get rid of that trade line, is down here, DS2. Not so bad. And up here at DR1, not so bad either from a risk to reward point of view. Let's measure that. Got $11.50 to play with. There's $10 to the upside. And we've got about the same, $10 either way. It's a little bit less than 1-to-1. And it is Monday, and we're very near to the bottom of that range. Not that fussed, I've got to say. I'd much prefer to be in the middle of the range before we take this breakout trade. So, yeah, it's a no from me. I'm not interested in taking that trade. It's got a long way to go to get into the long, and then we've got less than 1-to-1 to get our reward. We haven't got far to go to get into the short. And the concern that I have here is if we do get taken in very early, that we come back and retest the weekly pivot and the daily pivot, which is barely tested. So it's a no from me on gold today. So let me re-rack. And hi, Paul P. Happy New Week to you, mate. Let me re-rack. There's the opening candle. And we'll move on to what I believe is pertinent for the week ahead and what I'm looking to trade. I've already placed an order on the weekly charts and it is on euro versus the pound. Why? Well, let me give you a few indications as to why I think this can go short. The first of them comes pretty much on the biggest time frame, the monthly chart. And it does look to me as though the last time we visited a resistance area, or the last time we visited the extreme of a range, was pretty much up here, where we got a bit of a confluence between trend line and top of range. You could squeeze that up a bit to actually make a case for that being the high. You know, I'll leave it where it was, but it's close enough for me to say that the last time we visited an extreme of this range was on the high side. We've since put in a lower high, a lower low, and we're seeking a lower high here off this region, which I think is quite, I wouldn't say it's substantial, but it's certainly got plenty of form through here, a lot of resistance through here, support through here, resistance here, support there, resistance here, smash through it, and then up and back. Now we're retesting it as resistance. So I think there's potential for this to go to the bottom of this range, and that's one of the reasons that I'm keen to take this on board. We did have a gap down this morning, and the other reasons that I'm looking at to do with what I call game changer bars, and this is a very clear game changer bar at a resistance level that you can pretty much clearly see. If I go a little bit tighter on the daily chart, we've also got a box range on the daily chart. Again, there's that resistance area that we've now broken through, retested, and then put in that big reversal bar. Do I wish to enter at the bottom of that candle? Well, it depended a lot on what happened this morning. Had we gapped up, I would have placed an order underneath the bar. We didn't. We gapped down, which gives me really a little bit of an insurance policy in that if indeed the bulls want to just close that gap and keep going, then that's exactly what would happen. We wouldn't be taken into the trade. Given myself plenty of space underneath today's bar, underneath the open of today's bar, and I'll put my stop loss above the weekly bar. So not quite one-to-one, I don't think. Well, it probably is one-to-one to the bottom of that range. But I'm thinking that if this actually does reverse, which has been threatening to do for quite some time, hasn't done it, just reaches this support zone and then bounces back off it. But if it does actually swing into action here and reverse, then we've got a fairly decent reward available to us down to this trend line. It will have hiccups along the way, of course, around about there. Maybe that's the level, actually. That could be target area, I would have thought, around about the 77.5 mark. But that's going to give us a plenty of pips or plenty of bucks in the bank if we do get this right. So that's the trade. If you want to follow it, it's entering at 0.8645. Stop loss is about 120 pips. You can work that out, but it's 0.8765. And my first take profit, less than one-to-one by a substantial amount. I'm going to remove half at 70 pips, which is pretty much bang on the support and resistance area through here. So I don't want to go through that without putting money in the bank. I'll remove half and then just let the rest rip until we get a result stop loss, which will be moved, of course, to the 70 pip mark once we get TP1, if we get TP1. Also in CAD Yen from last week, those of you in the Slingshot group would know that we placed this trade last Wednesday, I think it was, maybe even Thursday. Reluctant to do so, and it's kind of not my thing to get into the market at this point, but what I saw was compelling, and for that reason I had to take the order. What was compelling about it was pretty much threefold. One was we'd broken with this massive buying bar here on the Monday, no, it was the Friday of the previous week, and then came back and retested the trade line to the pip, closed on that pretty much. And despite the fact that we had some ordinary CAD news, I suppose, late in the week, we did manage to get into that trade. There was the ordinary part of the CAD news, I think, and it looks to me as though it's going to have a crack at that high. The other reason I like to take that was because we had a pretty decent old trend line or trade line coming up through here, which was broken. The big buyer bar brought us back above that and retested that area. It was a nice little confluence of resistance and support. So I figured that if we did get back to this level, then we'd certainly be taking that high on, which is where my first take profit is, and then on for the next assault, I suppose, on the extreme high. Like I said, it's not like me to be taking long orders at this point, but I thought on the daily chart there was enough room to get profit in the bank, and maybe just I go with trend. Bit unlike me, but there you go. They're the only two things I've got in the market at the moment. The euro pound trade I've given you. A couple of things on the radar that are particularly interesting, and those, of course, I say this every Monday, I think CAD Swiss is one of them. We are in CAD Yen, which is a similar pairing, if you like, a risk on currency versus a risk off currency, but the circumstances are entirely different. We're nowhere near the top of CAD versus the Swissy. In fact, we're right down at the bottom, but that, of course, is enticing. Ash and I have been talking about this one for yonks, and last week we got this big bull bar, looking for a higher low in here at some stage during the week. How does that work? Well, we've got to bounce off the monthly pivot already. We're at the weekly pivot already. And we're not at the weekly pivot, we're at the daily pivot. If we were to come back to the weekly pivot or even deeper, I'd like to see this come back deeper. I don't know why I can't see that. Must be the wrong color. Or something's happened. No, there we go. Maybe back to there would be good for me to pick up that higher low. And if that, maybe we've even got the higher low already. If that's the case, I'm going to miss out on this one. But I'm hopeful that we do come back and get a nice retest of that breakout area from the previous rally, from the previous trade that we took a few weeks ago, which was a corker. Let's hope we get a repeat of that. The other one that I like is euro versus the CAD. Now, I'm not sure why I like this so much. And it seems I've got a penchant for the CAD this week. But there's the picture I've got on the weekly chart. It is a game changer bar to a degree. When I say to a degree, the reason I didn't include it in the game changer bars is because it's pretty almost a doji, where the tail on both ends is substantial. So I can't really call it a game changer bar, but what I can call it is if this doesn't happen, that will candle. And what I'm alluding to here is I've got two high test bars sitting on a resistance trade line, and that in slingshot land is an automatic, well, in circumstances that suit it, an automatic entry above that bar with a stop loss below it, which would make sense underneath the monthly pivot. I'm quite open to that, yet what I do see also is a pretty substantial, I know it's convoluted, but it's a pretty substantial head and shoulders sitting here. We haven't cracked the neckline of that, which is this area here. In fact, we rejected the neckline of that pretty much out of hand. Ash will probably guide me on this because he loves picking up right shoulders, but that's probably the right shoulder that was the one to pick up, I'm guessing. Is this a retest of that area, and are we still going south? I'm not convinced of the direction here, but what I will do is watch this area very, very closely throughout the week. And that's why it's on my radar, very much on my radar. I'm already seeing a rejection of the support area, which was the monthly pivot, and of course that trend or trade line running through here. If that fails, then I think we're on our way. So if price comes back beneath that trend line and the monthly pivot, then retests it, I'll be entering that fairly quickly. If, on the other hand, this wants to bounce and go long, I could indeed consider taking that order. But the nature of the candle and the reason that I'm so indecisive is because of that candle being pretty much a doji. Don't know what happens next, to be fair, but I'll be watching very, very closely. couple of other game changer bars that were interesting. And last Monday in my Q&A group that we run on a Monday night for the Slingshot, we were talking about this one, dollar versus the CAD. And I had a conversation with Gary, and we were talking about, for some reason, I've lost my analysis on this. But what we were seeing was pretty much a box range, and looking at this going long. Sorry, not dollar CAD, dollar Swissy. That's why I can't see it. There it is. We were talking about this going long because we were actually coming back into and off a bullish engulfing bar that Gary spotted there last week, which looked to me like an inverted head and shoulders, and we were trying to play that out. Fortunately, we recognise this area as a take profit area, and prices come back on that. So money in the bank is good. Depends on where the stop loss moved to as to whether we're still in this trade or not. I'm looking for this to produce a higher low and go long. And the reason, apart from that inverted head and shoulders, is we've got a very strong base here now, and it is a box range looking for a higher low, which would give us an inverted head and shoulders on the monthly chart. I'm getting a bit ambitious going out that wide, I know, but that's what I'm seeing. So looking for that one, dollar Swissy, very, very closely as well. I'll leave it there because my time's up, and I'm going to bring Ash in. G'day, buddy.
Hi, mate. How was your weekend?
Weekend, yeah. I think I had one.
Yeah.
So worked pretty hard, mate, to be honest. It's really flat out time here in Bamboo World. So yeah, don't get much of a weekend. In fact, it's probably one of the busiest times.
So you have to wait. Have to wait until the end of the year for your weekend.
Yeah, winter.
Winter. Yeah,
You got a
tough,
bit of a
mate.
cold.
No, but you know we had an IFP, and I
Oh, of
haven't really got
course.
a cold.
No sleep.
Yeah, but I did a little bit of rundown. Yeah, just a lack of sleep. Exactly that. Um, I've got to say, mate. I mean, I'm listening to your analysis, kind of going through the charts, and I applaud you for picking stuff. I'm honestly looking through. I've looked and looked and looked, and I'm finding it very difficult so far. You know, I'm not saying that this is going to remain like that, but I'm finding it very difficult, and I'll show everybody the reason why. I think it's going to be a challenging first few days anyway. I don't know whether it'll remain that way, but this
Hate
is
Mondays like that, you know. When you search and you're searching, there's just nothing there.
Yeah, Mondays can be a bit like that, and you know, there's some intraday moves maybe that can happen, but this is my big problem. You know, the dollar was so weak towards the end of last week due to the Fed holding interest rates, and you know, I think speculation now comes in, and it is literally any hint that there is some sort of pause or reversal ultimately from the Fed, and risk just floods back into the market. And I guess that, you know, the market's been so nervous that it's pushed prices down quite aggressively. So when there is some kind of hint that there is maybe some risk, the lid just gets lifted off. And I find really uncomfortable. You know, this is the Aussie dollar. And you could look right the way across the board, really, at all dollar pairs, even the yen, even the dollar yen was floating to the downside. Dollar Swiss gap down this morning as well. Kiwi dollar, huge moves to the upside. And then we go down to the index, the main kind of index that would benefit, I suppose, from the weaker Fed. And look, there's the Nasdaq. Now we know the Nasdaq does tend to do this. You know, it's kind of at the minute anyway. But this is my biggest problem. Now, when I kind of like come out and draw the trend lines of where we are, it's basically resistance. You know, and that suggests that we should be coming down. Now, it's difficult to sell because of the kind of mood music in the market, and what's going to make this kind of come down, what's going to actually promote some selling. But even the FTSE, you know, oh well, actually the FTSE less so, but the German stocks as well, same sort of thing. You know, it seems to be sitting at an area that could easily fail at this particular point on a technical basis. You know. We're right on top of it. And we saw last Friday's bar coming in. And you look at this on longer term timeframes, this is basically a downtrend. You look at this on a weekly, there was our support line. We've broken through it. So even though this is aggressive, this still looks to me like a retracement. I'm not really sort of that keen on looking for upside. And as I say, you go down to the dailies and you see that not only are we, potentially retracing, but we're right on top of resistance. Then all I really want to do is find a way to sell it. The fundamentals still point to selling it when you kind of look at the overall picture. And the only reason, to my mind, that it got the bounce that it did was that it got a little bit too oversold. The move to the downside was a bit too aggressive too quickly. Now the Fed have come out and said, "Oh yeah, we're going to pause." Everybody's like, "Brilliant! Next thing they're going to be reducing interest rates." Well, I don't think that's going to be the case.
No,
I mean,
I don't
looking
either.
at, yeah, I mean, inflation is taming. But you look across the board. I mean, it's a lot better in the
Not
States now.
everywhere. Not
But not
everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah, well,
No.
you're absolutely right. You look at the kind of the G7 and maybe some of the G20 countries. It's taming, but it's still high in some places. Like the United Kingdom is high. And you look at some of the economic growth data from the likes of Europe. It's diabolical. It's terrible. Is diabolical the word? No, it's diabolical.
You only missed out on 2 letters.
But it's diabolical, mate. And all I've seen, and do you know, interesting about this euro pound. Okay, we have seen the euro ease off to the downside, and you're looking for a long here. Is that right?
No,
You're looking for
no,
short.
sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
which I looked at, but then I kind of like started to draw the trend lines in. I thought, okay, well that's a problem. And then you look at this on the weekly, this becomes a problem. Sort of like you're extrapolating there. We're kind of like right on a point of you could tighten this up actually. We're right on a point of decision making. Where we currently are with this. So I can't trade that either because I looked at the short. I was like, yeah, that looks by all intents and purposes that looks pretty weak to me. But then when I kind of I come out and I start drawing these trend lines, it's a buy zone. So aggressive as it is, it's a buy zone, and this is where my problem lies. This is where my conflict in actually trying to do anything so far is taking place. I need now to see the things that I would foresee happening purely because of the level, nothing to do with the price action, as in a signal, but purely because of the level. I'm kind of looking for the German 50 and saying, sorry, the German 30 and saying, okay, this needs some downside. I look at this and I say downside, but this is just a little range in here, which at this stage is a bit, you could argue is more of a bull flag than anything else. So until we see signs and signals on a 4 hourly or on an hourly that this particular area is breaking down, then I'm kind of in holding territory. It's a kind of complicated head and shoulders pattern going on here. But this is complex. I need that to close down, retest, and then I might take this on board. In fact, I will take it on board if it's tidy enough. But even then, I don't know whether it's going to come down that far. The only other one that I did consider this morning was silver, and silver for some upside, because silver, again, it looks like it's broken out, but it hasn't gone sort of so far beyond the previous resistance level that it looks unattractive. And this does look like a bull flag. When you kind of look at this, it's looking a lot tidier than the German 50. So I quite like silver. I think both gold and silver are ultimately going to come down probably quite hard. But as we kind of sit this morning, we're within this range. If it pops up, then I might well take this one to the upside and see if there's anything there. But to trade right now, I don't have anything. I see George is in the room. I'm hoping he's going to shed some light on to change my mind.
What
I
do you
don't know
got
if
for
I'll
us,
change your
George?
mind.
I got shitloads. Ash has got nothing. What do you got?
I was listening to what Ash is saying. And there's some correlation to my thoughts. I just put all these charts on the daily. I mean, if you look at this is DAX 30, 4 bull candles mean, if you just flip to the left, when was the last time we had 4 bull candles? Now, this is way back in July. Then went into, we had 5, a bit of a trading range. So the bulls were pretty strong. My problem with where we are at the moment is what happened on Friday. I mean, Friday was just, it was an interesting day. I mean, if I put these 3 indexes up, I probably have spoken about this. I mean, after 4 bull candles on DAX 30, we had a doji. Just a couple of strong candles, bear reversal on UK 100. Then, I mean, just look at the S&P 500, roared ahead. So looking at them, we might as well have been trading oranges and cucumbers or something else completely different, in terms of what's taking place. However, having said that, I've got some thoughts for this week.
Yeah, I struggled, George. I have to say, when I saw that, when I looked at the indexes and I saw that, the kind of difference in the way they reacted to what was going on, I attempted to kind of put meaning on the moves, and I could definitely come up with something, but it was so tenuous that I thought, you know what, there's no specific rhyme or reason of what was really happening. The only thing that I ended up with was that the investors looking for American stocks were hyper keen on what the Fed said. They seem to love it. They seem to love Jerome Powell's tone, so they were just quite happy to kind of go into it again. But WTI is another one, another barometer that I look at, and that was tanking. That doesn't suggest growth.
Well, I mean, I think from a fundamental perspective, probably can make sense of what was taking place. From a price action, it was a clear example in that day that you really have to just look at what the charts are telling you and not try and create a correlation between the markets. Otherwise, you can miss out on opportunities, or just sit there and say, "What on earth is happening?" and things are moving. So on DAX 30 today, this level here, the high of this doji, for me is a key level. If the bulls break out above the doji, I'm going to look to see if we get a failed breakout above here, and a bit more selling. Now, selling on a 5-minute doesn't mean we're reversing the trend, right? Because it could be just selling to get back to test that low, but to be a beautiful enough trend on the day. So I am bearish on 2 fronts. If we break beneath that low, yesterday's low, and we get a decent enough, testing pattern, happy to short that. Or if we accelerate up, any break above that, I'm not going to be too keen to buy. I want to see if these bears that created that pause and sold off. I mean, this was a dramatic sell-off. They're still in the market. They're probably saying, well, the last week was just all sorts of interesting news. Now we have a chance to get back and reassert ourselves. I'm just looking, I mean, the open on all 3 candles now, it's just a trading range open. We back to, on DAX, we back to where we opened. So far, nothing much taken place there. On UK 100, now this is interesting. If this was taking place on the DAX or the S&P, I would confidently say, well, it's a bull breakout, pull back, and we're just going to accelerate up. But it's only taken place, after breaking out of a trading range. We are at the EMA, and of course, the bulls want to accelerate up and maybe try and get back to these levels. But you can't ignore this huge sell-off that took place there. So within the day, if I get a test back to these lows and the reversal up to the top, fantastic. Or even, if I get a bull setup going up long, I'm going to look to get into that. But if we get to this top here, I don't think we're going to get huge acceleration up without some form of maybe going sideways, and for the market to decide what to do. I think the selling is really still controlling the market. That's my view on UK 100. So I mean, right now again, it's a trading range open. Huge bull attempt, first candle, and then just a dodgy candle, low test, high test. So we've got to wait for that. S&P is still a bit early in the day, to really, I mean, the big moves come, of course, when the US markets open. But we've raced all the way up to resistance. And the bulls have been, I mean, they've been strong for such a long time. So, I don't think it's crazy to think that we'll have huge acceleration up at some point, but we are into resistance. So we might go up and fail in that level of resistance and start to sell off, maybe just, maybe the bears just want a double top. So it's a bit more time to think through this, as market unfolds. Again, it's just a trading range open at the moment. We just right where we open, so nothing much taking place there. So levels of resistance, I think, are going to be key. Are we going to get a sixth bull candle? Anything of this magnitude would take us above here. I doubt it that we can just smash through this level of resistance. I mean, this was a pretty strong lower high double top and acceleration. So I probably expect trading range price action a little bit more, in this zone in terms of where the market's going to go. So at the moment, no early setups, on each of these. Trading range, S&P 500, UK 100. Again, I mean, we right smack bang within that first candle. So there's nothing to do, until we try and break beneath this. And if we got strength, there will definitely be a pullback of sorts. Same up here. If the bulls are strong, we break out above it, pull back, go up. If the bulls are weak, which happened on, I think it was Friday, was it the other day, the market broke up and gave us a decent enough, low two reversal, which you could have taken, and made whatever, 1%, 2%. Or if you're brave enough to hold it through all the pullbacks, it went a long way. But that's a different psychology debate. And I mean, look at DAX. Not clear where we're going to go. So I'm going to wait. I mean, when you get something like this, it's probably just best to wait until the first hour ends and look at it again, and say, well, has anything become clearer? Are we still in a trading range? Who is trying to dominate the market? And start to get ideas. Pretty easy to get chopped up, and I find it's easier just to wait.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. I think that's exactly it, isn't it? It's easy to get chopped up, get really frustrated with the market because it just seems like you can't make the right decision. But actually, these are the markets that that you just have to let go, sometimes, and just say that the reason that they're not clear is because they're not giving us any kind of specific direction, and really sort of on Friday, well, last week's kind of bullish run on so many of these things inevitably needs a little bit of settling down. So until we get some signal about which direction it's going to go in next, it's much better just to kind of sit back and let it happen, and let the day go, and do some work in the background, or do something else rather than forcing your way in. These aren't the markets to force our way in, because the environment's just wrong.
Yeah, and if you, and again, I mean, I speak from experience. After being painfully chopped out many times, you look back and say, well, listen, there's no point fighting a trading range market, right? Trading range open. By the time we wait the first 18 candles, when like that opening session where all the rush is gone, it definitely becomes clearer. Where to take higher probability trades. You can still get stopped out, but it's less damage to the account than just trying to jump in now. All the market is doing now, the bulls and bears are probing for direction. That's all there is. It's going to become clear. The chances of the market ending up like this, out of 3 markets, whatever markets you look in, all of them may not end up like that. You might end up with one that might just become a dodgy, and nothing happens there. That's fine. But you might get 1 or 2 that may give you a bull trend or a bear trend that you can jump in. So when you don't get an immediate trend direction, it's just best to wait. And it will come. It will come sooner than you expect.
Later on today, we got composite PMI from Germany and services PMI from Germany. The big news really this week, and I call it big with a pinch of salt to a degree, but the RBA are going to be announcing their interest rate, which is going to have some sway, on the Aussie. What we've seen so far, interestingly, is prior to interest rate announcements, a rally with most currencies. After the interest rate announcement, we see the sell-off come in, and I wonder whether the strong moves that we've seen on the Aussie are about to get reversed to a greater or lesser degree because it's been incredibly keen. And it will depend, of course. I mean, if they do something surprising like raise interest rates, then that won't happen. But if they hold,
hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Do you want me to replay last Monday?
Yeah, go on.
What did I say last Monday? I said the economists in Australia were singing from the trees that tomorrow the RBA would raise interest rates. And that's why we saw an strong Aussie last week, right?
Right.
Watch the replay, Ash. Watch the replay.
Why didn't you tell me?
We did. We flagged that. We absolutely flagged it. And that is now, of course, scheduled into all the forecasts for tomorrow.
Okay. Oh, well, that is interesting, mate. Sorry, I totally missed that. Well, in that case, that will be. I mean, the Aussie could tank then if they don't raise it, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody else has held. Everybody else has held firm, and will they do the same, or will they be? And I guess that makes all the sense in the world. The Aussie, of course, is going to strengthen quite significantly because everybody else is holding, and they are, by definition, kind of moving, making their currency a lot more valuable over the period. So. They are due on Tuesday. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, they're due on Tuesday. Interest rate decision. Yeah, I see that. So the forecast for 4.35 from 4.1.
You heard it first here last week. Absolutely.
Heard it first from Jeff. Sorry, mate. I totally ignored you.
What I didn't say, or what, what I didn't say was, or what maybe I did say, was I wasn't sure that would happen. But if they're singing it from the trees, then the chances of the Aussie rallying last week were very, very strong. And that's exactly what took place. And now we are in exactly the situation you described. If they don't, then bye-bye Aussie for this week. If they do, then I think you'll see the Aussie continue to rally for the reasons we've just said. And from the start of the show, you were saying that everybody's on pause mode. Does this change the dynamics around the planet? I don't know. And it's pure speculation at the moment. But wow, the mail was so strong last week that this was going to happen.
I'll tell you what, mate, that makes the pound Aussie very interesting.
Yeah, I traded that last week. That was my one.
I also traded that one last week, and I got out of it slightly earlier than I should, but it was a great move, actually, wasn't it? It was nice and fast. And as I say, I got out of it a little bit quicker. But look at this. Look at this. I mean, the reason I got into it is that, as you rightly say, I love the right shoulder, and that's what we had last week. We had this right shoulder on the daily kind of forming. But look at where we are. I mean, we're basically now blow that up. We're basically now right on top of this neckline here, and but with this was it that bar? I can't remember which one I took actually. I think it was this one I took right at the top there. It was a lovely little hourly setup over here. That's where it was, and it just tanked straight away. It just tanked. It was great, but now we've got this situation where it's potentially just pulling back. And that means that this pullback, and look at the point here. So this is a point of previous support. If this becomes resistance, and if they do raise those interest rates, all of a sudden this becomes slightly better value over the last few sessions. This is now better value to sell off again. So this is looking really good, and you could say the same about the Aussie Euro Aussie and a few others. But this chart looks the nicest. This chart looks one of the better charts if you're looking for some strength in the Aussie. Looking at this on longer term time frames as well, it's got some room down here by the looks of things.
Yeah, look, I'd hasten to add that it's too late now. I wouldn't be buying it right now. You're going to have to wait for that announcement now.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're probably right. Except for intraday, there's probably between now and tomorrow, there's probably just a little bit of speculation that could move this currency around a little bit. So finding this at resistance here makes it of some interest to me, actually. You know, I'd like to see whether it could possibly come down and attempt to test these lows again. So it was probably going to need to get through this level here, but get through that level, and I think we might get some movement back to the lows. What's that going to create? There's not a lot there. Risk to reward might be no good, but actually, you know, technically speaking, that could be of some interest. But the risk to reward might just keep me out of that one.
All right,
okay.
throw up Aussie Kiwi, because I've got a question from Paul. Is Aussie Kiwi on a reversal? And this is dependent entirely on what we're talking about, Paul, in my humble opinion. If they do raise interest rates, no. If they don't, yes.
Yeah, it's had a strong run, isn't it, Aussie Kiwi? This is another one that I was in for a little while on the long side, and I'm with you, Paul. It looks to me like, I mean, that's pretty sloppy. It looks like an M topping pattern going on here. So there is a distribution pattern definitely happening. Three amigos, yeah. So with these here, 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
So it looks like we got some distribution pattern, a distribution pattern going on here. So it looks like it could. This looks to be the trend line, which is a bit messy actually. Yeah, I mean that would suggest that is the trend line along there. But we're probably going to have to move it down.
You're talking about a classic ranging pair here.
Yes, yes.
And it does sway on news events. So this in particular, and I think it's entirely dependent on what the RBA do tomorrow.
It does, but you look at this in this context on the daily, and considering where this support was, you know, and it was really created by this bar here, you know, when that pause there, and then it took off again, that has created some support along here, and because that is looking at support, that this is a buy zone at this stage when you look at the daily. It's a difficult pick, but this is looking more like a retracement to the upside than anything else. I think when you look on the slightly longer term timeframes, yes, it's an M topping pattern, so it could still come down, but you'd want to see at this stage it's way too close to the neckline. So you'd want to see that neckline broken and retested, if that's at all possible with such big news. I don't know, but that would suggest downside at the minute. To me, this is more of an area to buy it, but no, I wouldn't want to do that before tomorrow, really.
Yeah, and look, this thing tomorrow is way bigger than it would be otherwise, because if they do go, and everyone else is pausing and talking about potential reductions, this is a game changer. This really is a game changer.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, agreed. So, and we've had it across the board. The Bank of Japan really disappointed me last week. I was kind of
same.
Speculating on them.
Again, as usual, per normal.
Yeah. CAD yen short I was in, looking for a nice big move.
No, I was waiting, but I didn't go in.
Yeah, so they messed me up, but they stuck firm. We've had obviously the United States sticking firm, so the Aussie kind of changing, as you say, mate. It does, and actually the Bank of England stuck firm as well. So we've had a slew of them now that have stayed where they are.
Which interestingly enough, and if you went back far enough, and I can't remember the exact time. And I'm not suggesting for one second that Aussie RBA is a seer, for want of a better word, but I think you'll find that they were the first to pause as well.
Quite possibly. Well, do you know, it's interesting that the seer to me is the Kiwi, the RBNZ. You know, they were the first to move in the first place. They seem to be the ones that were ahead of the inflation narrative. Surprisingly so, really. I mean, you know, the inflation thing, I know there were some people saying it was transitory, but I think you and I were on the same page with it, that it was getting out of control pretty quickly. And the RBNZ were the first to move. So yeah, maybe it's the Antipodean area. You know, they kind of do have a little bit more with their finger on the pulse. The United Kingdom were way slow. They were really slow. They were dopey. and they've really let it get out of control. So yeah, it's a interesting period now. I've got to say, I think we've got this situation where growth is choking. Interest rates are probably near their top. They've probably been there for a little while, but they're choking growth enough now to now see we're seeing unemployment numbers go up as well, which is something that was almost like the piece of the puzzle that was missing. But we're starting to see unemployment numbers go up. So that suggests that inflation is probably going to get tamed by default, really. Whether there's enough contraction in global economic output will determine whether they move. And I think they probably will be in this situation where they're going to leave it higher for longer. I think we're probably going to settle here for a little while, rather than continuing to fight it. I think they're seeing enough unemployment going up, inflation coming down slowly. I think they've seen enough to suggest, okay, we leave it here and it will take care of itself. But actually reducing interest rates, I think, would be. I just can't see that happening, and this is one of the reasons that I'm finding it surprising, the moves that we've seen, the risk kind of like flushing back into the market. But in saying that, it was sold off quite heavily. So this is why, as George is doing, I presume as well, I'm kind of waiting for sell signals on the risk, in risk areas. Except for the Aussie, if they raise interest rates, that'd be the only thing.
Yeah, there'll be little risk involved in that trade if they do. I believe, but we'll see. Strange things afoot. And
yeah, wait for the news. I think so.
Yeah.
Paul, wait for the news. I don't like this market today. I've got to be honest. Woke up, had a look through, thought, it's awful. That's a terrible market. So I don't like. If there's aggression, if there's volatility, I kind of like to see the equal volatility when I come back to the next session, because then that stuff could reverse on the next session. It'd be quite simple. But I don't think we got that today. I think George has hit the nail on the head. I think we're in this kind of trading range, kind of little, like the little piddly rain that gets you wet without you noticing. That's what it does to your account.
What a wonderful analogy, but certainly place to be. Ranges are fantastic if you have a handle on trading them, because they're so predictable. It's going to
fair
here,
play.
it's going to bounce,
I guess
it's going to there.
This is where we are, isn't it? It's sort of like we're in your territory now. George and I are kind of on the sidelines, I think, for a little while. But yeah, we're in your territory.
I'd like to be trading small time frames, I can tell you, because I think that's where the action is at the moment.
Oh, for sure.
For these
absolutely. Yeah, undoubtedly.
Am I right that American markets open an hour later today now because of time zone?
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Well done, George. I didn't know that. I tell you what, I hate this time change clock stuff. It just throws me out every time.
Now we're done.
Yeah, which is good. I liked them opening an hour earlier. I have to say my time, but okay, we're back to normal. Fine.
Yeah. Fantastic.
All right, we're done, guys. Any more questions? We are in Q&A time after all. If you've got any more questions, we are more than happy to answer them, either from a collective point of view, or if you've got a direct question to one of the traders in the room, or you'd like to share something that you think is possible for a potential trade or potential money to hear it. You can come on mic, you can come on camera. Or if you're shy, just type it in the chat box. But it appears that
Jeff, is Jeff frozen or have I frozen?
I think Jeff is frozen.
Jeff is frozen. Okay. Well, he was about to say it appears that nobody's put a question in, so we can probably clear out of here. But thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, George, for popping in, mate. Really appreciate it. And I'm glad you're on the same page as me. That kind of gives me just the cue to go out now. I'm not going to do it. Well, I've got a few other things I've got to do sort of with shows, but it certainly encourages me not to do too much today when it comes down to pulling the trigger. I'm going to wait. Jeff, you froze for a little bit there, mate, but you're back.
Yeah, no, I shouldn't freeze. It's about 22 degrees here at the moment. So let's get out of here, before I just say something completely ridiculous.
Okay, mate.
Have a great week ahead, everyone. And thank you for being our trading buddies this Monday. We will see you all next week. Bye-bye for now. See you.
Bye, guys.